Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at example number 3 of balancing equations. Now, as always, step number 1, count the number of atoms of each element in the reactants and products. In this case, we have an equation that's got brackets in between them, so some students might find this a bit confusing. So we're just going to explain how to do this. So first of all, we're going to count the atoms of each element on each side. So we got hydrogens. In here, we got 1 from this molecule, and then over here we have 2. Now, as you notice, the OH is inside the brackets, and we have a 2 outside the brackets. Just like in math, everything inside the bracket gets multiplied by the number outside the brackets. So in this case, we don't have 1 hydrogen, we have 2 hydrogens because of the 2 that is outside the bracket. Over here on the other side, we have 2 hydrogens, and that is from the water molecule. Oxygens, we got 3, and again, 2 oxygens because of the 2 that is outside the bracket. And this other side, the formula says 3 oxygens inside the bracket, but because there is a 2 outside, we are going to times it by 2. So in total, we have 6 oxygens in that molecule. And we have 1 more oxygen in the water molecule. Now, it is important to keep those separate, and you will see why in a minute. Nitrogens, we got 1, and we got 2 in this side, because it is being multiplied by 2 that is outside the brackets. Calciums, we're going to have 1, and then we're going to have 1. The 2 outside the brackets doesn't apply to the calcium because calcium is not inside the bracket itself. Step number 2, start balancing hydrogens, oxygens, and then anything else. In this case, we're going to start with the hydrogens. So in one side, we have 3 hydrogens, and the other side, we only have 2 hydrogens. Then we have the oxygens. We have 3 and 2, 5 in one side, and then we have 7 in the other side. And then we got nitrogens also to balance out. The calciums remain the same. Step number 3, make all small numbers equal to the big ones by multiplying. If you put a 2 in front of that water molecule, that 2 is going to multiply the 2 hydrogens, making a grand total of 4. Over here, we need to make the small number equals to the big one, so we're going to try to multiply this 1 hydrogen that is by itself. We're going to times it by 2, and now we have 2. Now, the 2 over here also multiplies the oxygen because it is part of the same molecule. So when we multiply that oxygen, is 1 times 2 equals to, notice that we didn't multiply the whole thing. If we had written down 7, it would have been a lot more difficult to get this balancing correctly. So this is why it is important to separate the oxygens according to what molecule they're in. The 6 oxygens belong to the first molecule, and the 1 oxygen belongs to the water molecule. So in this case, we are only going to multiply the 1 in the water molecule. Now, we got that 2. That also multiplies by 3 because in this case we had 3 oxygens. So now 3 times 2 equals 6, plus 2 equals 8. And in the other side we had 6, and 1 times 2 equals 2. When we add them together, that is also 8. Now that 2 is also going to multiply the nitrogens because it is also part of the same molecule. Now 1 times 2 equals 2. Now when we look at this, we can see that it's fully balanced. We have 4 hydrogens in this side of the equation, 4 after the arrow. We have 8 oxygens before the arrow. We have 8 oxygens after the arrow, 2 nitrogens before the arrow, and 2 nitrogens after the arrow, 1 calcium and 1 calcium, and those remain the same. Now, before we go, there is just a couple of general rules that you need to follow in regards to balancing equations. And you can only add big numbers to the left of the molecule. The big numbers that you add will multiply every element or every uppercase in that molecule. In this case, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. You will never add a small number to the right of the molecule because that is just how the molecule is. The small number tells you the number of atoms of the element right next to it, in this case, oxygen. That 3 belongs to the oxygen, meaning that there is 3 oxygens. It doesn't belong to the nitrogen or the hydrogen, just the oxygen. The big number to the left of the molecule will not multiply past the sign. The small numbers outside of the bracket will only multiply the elements inside the bracket. If there is a big number to the right of the molecule, it will multiply everything, including what is inside the bracket. When counting the number of atoms, always separate the number of atoms in each molecule, even if they are from the same element. And one last piece of advice, don't be lazy, write down the steps to help you remember the process, make it easier to backtrack and find out where you made a mistake if things are not adding up. Right, so there you have it, a quick time revision. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.